talk about my node journey, in essence, like why I've ultimately been doing the steep learning curve and trying to understand a really cool node implementation with a more methodical approach to managing packages and your services. So, got into Bitcoin in 2016 and we went through the whole UASF struggle. That's when I started running Bitcoin Core. But ultimately, I didn't know how to verify my own transactions or even use a hardware wallet with that. There was no HWI or anything like that. And it was pretty pitiful, but I had the mentality that I was going to decentralize the network or whatever. Then we fast forward to 2018, Lightning launches. We're on mainnet, perhaps. Fulmo started to throw these hackathons and try to, bring things up to speed for people that want to hack with Lightning. There was a Raspberry Bolt, but I guess they made their own scripting approach to it called Raspberry Blitz. So this is with Rootsall and Jeff from Fulmo. They came to New York and they threw this hackathon. They walked me through it, essentially creating the seed, understanding the aspects of how this is a hot wallet now. And there's different necessities for actually keeping your channel DB, your wallet.dat file, needing like a SSD, all that. And also the shortcomings of the Raspberry Pi hardware itself. So during that time, that's when I finally learned about Bitcoin.conf and, went through those big struggles. I will admit, my RPC user replaced me for quite a bit, but eventually things worked out. And, I guess the accessibility of these various node in a box or software slowly started getting better. It was also around the time that Pierre Rochard launched his node launcher. That was also fantastic. Got to use it with Joule and, buy some cool stickers. Like, I got Lightning running, but all I got was the sticker, remember those? So essentially, it's been cool seeing like how things have evolved from like the Casa node and how they discontinued it. And then people wanted to repurpose that hardware for my node and Umbrel. And, not necessarily have people have to dive through this rabbit hole and need to know everything from that perspective right away. They can kind of just get a feel for it, running like RTL or other, GUIs like ThunderHub now, and slowly learn like how the Lightning Network works in general, how to manage their balances, everything like that. Now, I do see these as like more of the top of the funnel nodes, and I've run into other issues in general about my package management. For example, you guys just heard Jimmy Song speak. I was going through his book, and it was on a MacBook, and I'm using Homebrew, but then I need to update my virtual end for a Jupyter notebook and stuff. So I'm in this weird middle ground, like using pip and Homebrew, trying to figure out why something's not working, which package, or essentially what was deprecated, and ultimately gave up because I'm not that technical. So I slowly started speaking more with one of my colleagues on the research team, Jonas Nick, also known as Nickler on Twitter, and he introduced this whole different approach to package management. It's called Nix, and it's a functional package manager. It has a SHA-SUM for every package, and essentially the way that the packages are done is through these derivations, and it's a completely different approach where it's in this thing called the Nix store, and it takes almost like a least privilege approach to everything. There's profiles, and these profiles specifically have that package versus like something that's pinned to the entire system with the traditional file system hierarchical standard. So this was a lot more easy for me because of that. And there's other really cool things about this OS. At boot, for example, it shows your exact build. So if something breaks, you can always go back to the previous build, do a rollback. So that's the OS and that's the package manager. And then after that, he decided essentially that because he's set up so many nodes and he likes to do it the correct way, really bolt everything down, give everything least privilege access, network namespaces, hardened systemd, all that stuff. So he got sick of it and he wanted to come at it more from like an infrastructure as code perspective. And that's when he started building and maintaining this thing called nix-bitcoin. Currently, there's 3 main contributors, nix-bitcoin dev, Jonas Nick, and Eric Arstead. They've done a phenomenal job of making this a more agnostic node, perhaps. You know, you can run a bunch of different services, C-Lining, Liquid, LND, Join Market, ElectRS. They have other really cool, like unique things too, like a recurring donation service. So, and all this is really cool because once again, it's from the infrastructure as code perspective. So what it looks like is it's like a config file, and you type in bitcoin d.enable, and that's pretty much it. And then you build that, and then it works. And you know, all this is a bit intimidating, perhaps, for not as technically adept users like myself, but there's plenty of examples on nix-bitcoin.org. So it's pretty much as simple as removing like the comment, and then your config's kind of set up already. So I've been doing this and like learning this for the aspect of never having to set up a node again and just keeping this config file somewhere. It's called configuration.nix. So anytime I spin up a node, it's like I already know how I want it, what I want to run on it. Now these run on like bunch of different hardwares. They specify this on nix-bitcoin.org. We have some people running on Raspberry Pis. I personally run it on an Intel NUC. When I first ran it, I ran it on an old 2010 MacBook Pro. Tried on 2017 Surface Pro. That was fine too. So it's fairly straightforward. You're just figuring out like a boot process, whether it's like UEFI or BIOS, like the legacy boot. But after you get through that main hurdle, it's pretty much you're done. You know, it's the lowest time preference node. So highly encourage everyone to take a look and see if it's for them. Now I know Suheb and the RTL folks are doing a phenomenal job with GUIs, so we're seeing if that can be added to nix-bitcoin as well. So it's like a bit more accessible to you know, like the users that perhaps are on these umbrellas and want to have a little bit more security and not necessarily have all that attack surface, but also have the usability. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Trying to think what else. Are there any questions about nix-bitcoin? Feel free to come up or just shout them out. Yeah. So I think another cool, interesting fact that sold me on nix-bitcoin was there was the pseudo vulnerability a while back, and the nix-bitcoin folks they never ran into this, and I guess nixOS as well, because they use like the more Unix-based approach, like BSD or whatever, with doas. So they completely circumvented that. There's been a lot of other stuff, like I mentioned, with running everything behind Tor, making sure the certain Nix profiles only have access to the services that they need. And once again, it's one simple text-based config file. Upload it to your GitHub. Whenever you're deploying anything, you can just rebuild that. It'll deploy to that machine. It can also be run on VMs, essentially just by having the Nix package manager, and you could run that on whatever OS, like Mac. So yeah, that's about it. Please check it out, nix-bitcoin.org. Thank you.